Hey everybody, welcome to Black Cat Forge. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for tuning in. I've got a really fun project for y'all today. It's going to be a bit of a stretch challenge, but I think if you have followed along with all of my previous videos, I think you'll be fine. It's time to start taking all the skills we've learned and start putting them together, plus learning a few new skills. So before we get into it, as always, if you'd hit like and subscribe, hit the little notification bell, I would really appreciate you doing that. It just keeps me motivated to keep making this content for it. And also when you do that, you'll know the first time I drop a new video. So we're coming into the holiday season, and it's time to start making gifts for people. Sometimes people will come up to you and say, hey, can you make something for me, for someone else, something like that. Somebody came up to me recently and asked me to make a paper towel holder for them. I went online and I found a picture of one that I liked, but I had no dimensions, I had no drawings, I had no plans. So I had to sit down and kind of do some math and some drawing and some figuring. And this is what I came up with. This is a paper towel holder, removable rod. Your paper towels sit right here. You've got these little decorative edges here to kind of keep the towel guided as it spins. I really like this design. And the case is sometimes when you start making something as a blacksmith, somebody catches wind of what you're doing, and the very next person asks you to make another one for them, which is fine. I enjoy doing that. But the next one I got asked for is the same thing, but with a little different. So what I want to do in today's video is I want to sit down and we're going to talk about planning out how to make something like this. And then we're going to make it. So the very first thing we've got to think about is when we make this, we've got to think about what is this project going to be based around? And it's going to be based around a paper towel. Paper towels are fairly standard in size. So I just took this out of my shelf and I said, this is going to be my model. As I measured this, they're about 5.5 inches wide and about 11 inches tall. So I know what I build has got to be within those dimensions to hold this. So the next thing I had to figure out was what sort of steel did I want to use? And I went out, did some shopping, and I found that 1.5 inch by 1/8 inch thick, 48 inches long does the trick. That's the steel I wanted to use. So then we had to sit down and start thinking about measurements and how everything is going to play out. So for this, I figured these are about 2 inches long from the picture. I factored in about 1/2 inch for the fishtail scrolls on this. The base and the top are 6 inches wide, or 6 inches long, I should say. From here to here is 11.25 inches. That way it gives me a little bit of playroom so the paper towel is not tight and it can freely spin. On top of that 11.25, I needed about 2 inches to have this piece attached, and I have it attached with rivets. And then I used about another 2.5 inches to do this fishtail up here. Now, I'm going to use the same dimensions, but I'm not going to do this scroll up here. I'm going to do a split and do a spiral on the side, which will be a little different, but we'll talk about the process for doing that. So from here to here is right about 15.75 inches. We can call it 16 if we want to. That would be fine. So I know I need to take that steel and I need to cut roughly 16 inches off. Then I need to do this. This is 2 inches. This is 2.5 inches. That's 4.5. This is 6. So I know this will be 10.5 inches that I need for this piece. Then I've got to figure out my drills and everything for that. But we will get to that as we move on. What I want to talk about is we're going to talk about some of the things we're going to learn on this project. We're going to learn how to do some scroll work. We're going to learn how to do bending at 90 degrees. We've already talked about doing planning and drawing out our plans. And by the way, I will have our plans up here just so you can see them. We're going to learn how to take steel, split it, and then start making decorative sides with it. And we're going to work on fit and finish, peening. We're going to work again on riveting. If you saw my last video where we talked about riveting, we're going to do the exact same type of riveting that we did before. We're going to plan out how to do our drilling. We got a lot to do on this project. But when we come out with it, we're going to have a very nice paper towel holder that you could give to somebody as a gift or sell at a craft show. It's all up to you what you want to do. So before we get started, I do want to talk about one more quick little thing. When you buy this steel from the store, these edges are very, very sharp. I don't know if you can see here on my finger, but when I was working on this one, I misstruck with my hammer and I cut my finger very deeply. I almost had to go get stitches for this. So the very first thing I'm going to do is after I cut this steel is I'm going to go to my belt sander and I'm going to take these sharp edges off. If you remember the video I just did on fit and finish where I said, you know, my mentor always taught me to close my eyes and run my hands over this, to always look for sharp points where somebody could get cut. I should have done that before I ever started making it because that would have saved me a very sore finger. But that's a lesson learned. That's a lesson I can pass on to you. So let's move on. Let's get the forge lit. Let's get the angle grinder out. Let's start making some cuts on this steel and start working on our project. Okay, before we do get to the forging, I want to talk to you about the layout process, what I'm going to do before I even get this steel hot. I've already cut this, and in my intro, I misspoke. I want to cut this to 24¼ inches. I had some extra steel. I just went ahead and cut this one to 24½. That 1/4 inch isn't going to matter one way or the other. So what we're doing is we're going to start here. This is going to be that front lip. So I measured out 2½ inches. This is going to be the bottom base right here where the paper towel is going to sit. I measured this out to 6 inches. This is the backbone. I measured this out to 11¼ inches. This is going to be where my top part is going to attach by rivet, so that's 2 inches. And this is the area I am going to split down the middle and create a decorative design. So that's 2½ inches. Now, if you notice, I marked this front. And if I flip it over, I marked this back. And the only thing I marked here was the 2½ inches. The reason I did that is when I bend this steel, I'm going to put a center punch mark here and I'm going to bend it this way. So this will be my indicator mark of where my 2½ inches are. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a center punch mark here, a center punch mark here, center punch mark here, and a center punch mark here. That way, when I do put this in the heat and it loses the ink, I will know where to do my bends. And the other thing is between here and here, I'm going to pebble. And on this side from here to here, I'm going to pebble. That way, when you see it, you will see the pebbling. And when I bend this end up, you will see the pebbling. Also, before I do the pebbling in this part, I am going to put my maker's mark right here in the center, and then I'm going to pebble around it. So I hope this makes sense, that when you're working on a piece like this, it's going to have a lot of multiple bends and things going on. Take the 5 minutes it's going to take to mark it out. One thing is always try to use a silver Sharpie. The black Sharpies sometimes in steel just don't show up. The silver shows up really great. And then again, when you put it in the fire, it's going to disappear. Before we go to the anvil, I'm going to go through and I'm going to put my center punches on these lines. I'm going to put my center punch here. Once I have that, we will go to the fire and we'll start by putting my touch mark right here. We'll pebble this and we'll pebble this, and then we will start the bending. So I'll be back in just 1 minute. All right, so as you can see, I've marked all these lines with the center punch. Like I said, I have a mark back here. So we're ready to go ahead and get this in the fire. I'm going to start by pebbling this real quick. That's going to be easy. I'm going to then put my touch mark here and then do the pebbling. So let me get the forge going and join me at the anvil. Okay, so I did forget a step. Before we do the peening, what I want to do, is take about that first ½ inch and just start flattening it and getting it to spread out on the side. See how it's spreading out there? That is the first step in getting the fish scroll set up. So I'm going to heat this back up. We're going to get the scroll portion done. Then we will come and do the peening. So what my goal was to get this steel to spread out like it has. I'm going to do one more little heat and get that to come out. This is going to be the start of my scroll. All right, so once I get this cleaned up right here, using the front side, I'm going to start my scroll down, bring it back around. That way, so when we bend, after we pebble this and we bend it, our scroll will be in the right orientation. This is one of those things you have to stop and think about when you're working, which orientation you are. So I'm right now, as you can tell, I'm using the front side. So let me heat this up. Let me finish this one little part, and then we'll get the scroll going. So all I want to do is I just wanted to clean that one little area up right there. So now we're going to be ready to start scrolling. So let me get this hot, and then we can start doing some scroll work. So all I'm going to do is I want to push this over just a little bit. And I'm just going to start gradually working my steel over the edge of the anvil, making sure that it's good and even. So there's the start of our scroll. So we're going to heat this up again, and then we're going to start rolling it back some. So get that started. Then we're just going to come back and start working our hammer across the back, trying to get it all to bend about the same rate. Because if you don't, you'll get your scroll sideways. It won't look that good. Okay, so that's about where we want to stop. I'm going to heat it up and we're going to continue working it around. Okay, so we've got that pretty far. I just want to come here and take my scrolling pliers. Just continue the bending. That's looking pretty good. I think if we give it one more heat and a twist, we can call that portion done. think we're going to leave that scroll like that. I kind of like that scroll. That looks good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flip back here to the back portion, and we're just going to peen this area right here. And all that's going to be is getting it hot, taking my ball peen hammer, and just putting divots in it randomly. That will be the first portion here. And then we will come here, put my touch mark, and get this all peened. And then we'll start doing the bending. But I want to get all the decorative work done first, and then we go to the bending portion. So we're just going to lay it here. Not bad. I'm going to go ahead and knock the scale off of this. All right, so we've got this all nice and peened out. We've got our scroll. Our next thing to do is we're going to get this hot again, and we're going to lay this here. So we figure this is the bottom, this is the top. So when you're looking at it, you're going to be looking at it this way. So I'm going to put my touch mark right about here. So when you're standing looking at it without a paper towel, you'll be able to see who made it. So that's going to be the first thing, and then I'm going to peen around it in this section. So I'm going to quench this in and get it cool so I can handle it, and then I'm going to put this portion in the fire. So I'll be right back. All right, so we got this hot. We're going to put our touch mark right about there. It should be good. And there we have our touch mark. I'm going to cool my mark off real quick. And then we're now going to start pebbling. All right, just get the last little bit of peening done. All right, so we got the peening finished. Now, one thing I like to do at this point is I want to make sure that I'm still true. And if I see a high spot, I want to use the heat that I have in the anvil, or have the heat I have in the steel, just to make sure that everything is about as true as it can be. So we're good. So we have our fit and finish. We have our finish done here. We have our peening finish done here. So the next part is going to be a little fun. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this section hot, and I still have my center punch mark. I'm going to put this in the vise, lock it in, and then I am going to hammer it over this way. That will establish that bend. I'll have to do a little bit of cleanup with it, but that just ensures we get a good, nice, even bend. Once I'm happy with that, we're going to lock it in the vise at this portion right here where my other touch mark is, and we're going to bend it up. That's going to get our major bends done. And then the only thing we'll really have to do blacksmithing wise is we're going to split this portion here and do some decorative work. So let me get this hot. I'll get the camera moved over to the vise, and we will start our bends. So what we want to do is, now that we got this hot, I'm going to get this in the vise so it's lined up with my center punch mark. I'll make sure that I have my steel straight and start my bend. So right there, that's our bend. That's our first bend. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. I may heat it up a little bit and try to get it a little bit more 90, but it looks really good so far. The nice thing about these post vise is they were designed to be pounded on. Um, if you ever run across the chance to get a post vise for your shop, get you one. They're well worth having. Uh, you will find so many things that you can do with it. It's not even funny. So I'm gonna lock this in this way. Make sure it's happy, and make sure it's happy. Okay. And there you have it. Now I do see I've got a little bit of a twist. It's kind of canted off this way. That's easy to fix. I'm going to use my twisting wrench. I'm going to get this hot. I'm going to lock it in, and I'm just going to give it a little twist with my twisting wrench. This is to be expected in bending, so it's not a big deal. So let me get this hot. We'll fix that. So I'm going to do, so I'll lock this in real quick. Just give it a little twist. And now if you look, that looks much more straighter, and I'm happy with that. So we have this bend done. The only thing I want to do right now is I've got a little hump here. So while I have some heat, I'm just going to take it to the anvil. And I'm just work that hump out. So the next portion is we're going to get this hot. We're going to get this hot. Here's my mark. We're going to lock it back in the vise, and we're going to hammer it back this way. And that will be the base where your paper towel is going to sit. This is going to be the back. And that's really about the majority of the major bending we're going to do on this piece. So let me get this section hot here. We'll get it ready to go in the vise, and we'll get it bent. Got this hot. I'm going to put it here in the vise. I'm going to get it lined up. That's the key, is making sure that this is as even as possible. Want to get this hot. I'm going to straighten this up a little bit. So at this point, it does look rather bent up. This is not a blacksmith panic time. This is the way the process happens sometimes. I had to lengthen this out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this hot. I'm going to get this straight. Then I'm going to get my bend over the anvil, and we'll be able to call this section done. I'll put this over the anvil. Kind of get that as straight as we can right now. And there, as you can tell, it's straightening out really nice. I just got to get it hot one more time. And I've just got to work this section a little bit more. And we'll have this section finished. We'll just have to do some tweaking to get it aligned, which always happens. So let me get this section hot, and we'll start wrapping this up. Okay. And there you have our bends. It just takes a little work sometimes to get everything back to true. And I'm kind of looking at everything, kind of looking at it from a top-down view. And that looks pretty straight. So that's good. The one other thing I will do next is I'm going to heat this whole back plane up. The reason I'm going to heat this up is it's got a few bends in it. And I just want to massage it back into true. It's easier to correct this now than later. And then we'll work on decorating, getting the top decoration done. And this portion, except for the drilling, will be finished. Here, grab a hammer. And all I want to do right now is I'm not trying to smash it. All I'm doing is just giving it some love taps just to get it back in plane. It really wasn't that bad, but if you don't correct these problems now, they will get worse as time goes on. And I've got one right here that I need to correct. Okay, so here's where we are. So what our next step is going to be is going from that center punch to here, finding center, drawing a line. I'm going to take the angle grinder and I'm going to cut a straight line. And then I'm going to show you how to work these edges into a triangle and then scroll them down so we've got a nice little decorative scroll to go right there. So that will be our next step. So I'm going to go get this cut, and then I'm going to get it hot, and then we're going to start talking about how to make our design. All right, so we're back. I went ahead and I cut this into two separate pieces. So the first step we're going to take is we're going to heat this up, and I'm going to bend one of these pieces out of the way. That way I have full access to this piece, and I am just going to draw this out into a triangle. Then when I'm done, I'm going to bend it back. I'm going to bend this one, and I'm going to do my best to make an exact copy of what I did over here. Then we can take it and we can start forming it around to making our design. So let me get this hot, and we'll be back at the anvil in just a moment. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take and bend this one down just to get it out of my way. Now that I got this out of my way, I can start working and shaping this. Okay, so as you can see, this is progressing along really nicely. I want to get this to a point, which I'll probably get the next heat. And then I'm going to work on thinning this out some. And then we'll start on the other side. Okay. So that's coming out really good. I like the point that I've got here. The only thing I want to do is I want to now just work on thinning this back out. It's about double in thickness what we started with. So I'm going to work on getting that thinned out. So we're getting there. We just about got it back to the original thickness. All right. All right. So this is what we have. So my next step is I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to bring it over here. Let's bring it over here. And I'm going to start bending it out 90 degrees this way. So then I can straighten this one out and start working on it. The camera angle. So what I'm going to do right now is just start bringing this down. And yes, it does want to fight you sometimes. That's fine. Let me get a little bit more heat in that. All right. So if you've been following along, this is really similar to what we did with the barbecue fork, where we split it and then we bent it out of our way. So right there, I'm happy with that for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to straighten this out, and then we're going to repeat for this side. Okay, so you've seen what I did for this part. I'm going to come back to the video after I get this part made and I get them both similar in size and length. The key is once you start drawing this out, is start doing comparisons all the way with it. You want to do comparisons to make sure that they're the right size. If for some reason one gets too long, you can always sand it back, file it back. If one gets too thin, you can take the thick one and file it back down so they're similar in size. If we run into that, we'll talk about that. But here we are. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video for now, and I'll come back once we are ready to do some more work. Hey everybody, so looking at the video, I'm pushing well over 30 minutes. I don't like my videos to go that long. If you like the videos to go longer, please leave me a comment just so I know that you want them to just continue, not break them up into part one, part two. I'm more than happy to do that. But I know my attention span starts to wane after about 30 minutes into a video. So we're at a good stopping point right now. I will get part two out fairly quickly before the holidays. We're at a good point right now. I've got them both drawn out. I had to bend this end in just because my forge is small and I was getting very cramped for space. So we will pick up on this and then making the part here, doing the fit and finish, and we can call this project done. I appreciate your viewership. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't. I will have the second part out in a few days. Until then, blacksmith safe, and I'll see you soon.